resume our recording so that we can share out after this session ends. Super excited to have Mike Steadman join us as our presenter for our mini learning lab today. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. And I think I said I'm the program manager for DC, but if I didn't, I'll just throw that in there as part of the dog tag staff. And as part of our programming, if you've joined in on our information session or watched the recording of it, you should know that we have 5 key components to our program. So we have the education piece, where here in DC, we partner with Georgetown University. In Chicago, we partner with Loyola University Chicago. Then we also have the hands-on component, which is where our fellows have the opportunity to do a little bit of consulting, some case studies for the bakery, which is the small business that we have in DC in the Georgetown neighborhood there. And then another big component is the learning lab piece. And so this is where we bring in partners, small business owners who are able to share about their experience as an entrepreneur, but then also provide key information, tips, tricks, lessons they've learned, things you should keep in mind, different skills. Mike is big into branding and marketing, so he's going to impart a little bit of that wisdom today. And then also, just resources that you should be aware of. So as part of our recruitment cycle, one of the things that we've been doing is this mini learning lab where we bring in a partner to give you just a taste of what you can experience in the fellowship program. I want to go ahead and let Justin, my colleague who is joining from Chicago, jump on, just introduce him real quick, and then we'll pass it over to Mike for our session this afternoon.
Thank you, Ashley. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, whichever time zone you're in. My name is Justin Miller. I am the program manager for Chicago. So if you have any Chicago-specific questions, feel free to send me those in the chat. I'll be on for the duration. But with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley and Mike. Thanks.
All right. Well, Mike, I will pass it on to you. We'll have until about 1:50. So for your presentation, some questions, and then we'll take the last 5 to 10 minutes just for some general program questions if anybody has any. So Mike, with that, I will pass it on to you.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great or good afternoon. Hope everybody had a great weekend. My name is Iron Mike Steadman. I'm super honored to be here today. I'm the founder of 2 ventures, Ironbound Boxing, a nonprofit based in Newark, New Jersey that provides free amateur boxing training, entrepreneur education, and employment opportunities to Newark youth and young adults, as well as Ironbound Media, a podcast production company that helps veteran-owned businesses create, distribute, and grow branded podcast series in order to engage with their ideal audience. So I'm a little bit of a Renaissance man. I don't describe myself as a serial entrepreneur. I do a bunch of stuff, a podcast, I write, I box. But one of the things that I'm very passionate about is entrepreneurship. And I'll tell you, the only thing I'm equally as passionate about entrepreneurship is boxing. So I'm super excited to be here today for this learning lab. And the takeaways I want you to have leaving out of this session today is, number one, I want you to understand the 5 stages of small business growth and how to navigate them. And number 2, I want you to have a plan to engage with your first 10 clients or your first 10 customers, and then your first 100 customers. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of the 5 stages of small business growth, and then we're going to jump into what I like to call dog whistle branding. So what I'm going to do is, first off, go ahead and share my screen with everyone. Let me pull this up. Boom, boom, boom. Oops. All right. Can everybody see my screen here? Perfect. Let me see if I can pull it in a full screen or play. Don't know what is going on here. Close enough. All right. So everybody see this cover art here? Can everybody see dog whistle branding? Thumbs up. Okay. So dog whistle branding is a concept I came up with, which is a new marketing and branding category specifically for veteran-owned businesses. And what I like to do is I like to educate veteran business owners how to think of their brands like dog whistles. And every time you blow on your brand with a newsletter or a podcast or a blog post, You're not trying to get everyone's attention. You're only trying to get your perfect customer's attention. And so over the course of this mini learning lab, I'm going to talk to you about how to do that. Before we do that, we've got to go over the 5 stages of small business growth. And one of the reasons I want to do this is when I started my entrepreneurial journey, right? I left the Marines. I was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. I got out in 2015 and relocated to Newark, New Jersey with the intent of starting a free amateur boxing program. I didn't go to business school, so I don't have an MBA, and I consider myself the reluctant entrepreneur. I was just a guy trying to solve a problem, i.e., how do I fund free amateur boxing training for youth and young adults in the city of Newark? Over the course of my entrepreneurial journey, I've done 8 to 10 incubators and accelerator programs, very similar to the Dog Tag Fellowship. And by far, the best framework I've learned for understanding how to navigate the entrepreneurial journey is the 5 stages of small business growth. Okay. So stage 1 is validate your business model. A lot of us come up with ideas for a venture. Maybe we want to open up a coffee shop, or you want to start a podcast production company like me, or maybe you want to open a gym. Okay. Either way, though, we have these ideas. What we need to do is validate that there are people that are willing to pay us for our products or services. So the early stages of the entrepreneurial journey is really about validating your business model. And you want to validate it with paying customers. A lot of times we think we have great ideas, but until you go out and start earning revenue, it's just a concept. It's just a theory. So I want you to validate it sooner rather than later. I put money in your bank account. You know, your friends and family telling you a good idea. We don't care about that. We want to make sure that people are willing to pay us. Once you validate your business model, the next step is to get recurring revenue via sales. Okay. So you get your first 5 to 10 customers. You realize that you have something people are willing to pay for. And the next step is, how do we get monthly recurring revenue? How do we turn this into a real business? Because for a lot of us, we want to work on our ventures full time. That should be the goal. But before you can do that, right, obviously you need to say, hey, can I cover my cost of living? Can I get predictable monthly revenue? And that's what you want to focus on. All right. Stage 3 is foundation. This is where you start to bring on team members. Maybe you hire a virtual assistant. You hire other contractors and vendors. Maybe you hire an operations person. Right now you start to build this foundation of your business, right? So you can start to position yourself to scale and to grow. Stage 4 is expand. This is where you scale up. Maybe you go from 1 location to 2 locations, or 2 locations to 3 locations, right? And then stage 5 is multiply. Now, the majority of us are going to operate in stages 1 through 3, right? So that's validate and foundation. But the mistake a lot of business owners make, particularly people that are going to participate in this fellowship, is you're going to try to skip sales and go straight to validation. What do I mean? Business is a contact sport. You have to be willing to drive revenue, right? There's no way around it. And a lot of times you're going to read business literature, or you're going to participate in a bunch of programs, and everybody's going to talk to you about scaling up and how you need to do this and how you need to do that. But at the end of the day, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. And the way you do that is by getting predictable, monthly, recurring revenue. You need to understand how much money you think you'll be able to bring in month over month. And this is going to take time. This is not going to be an overnight thing, right? This is you building systems and processes that allow you to drive that revenue consistently. And then from there, you can start to bring on other team members. Now, as the person teaching this session today, I made the mistake last year of skipping the sales phase and jumping straight into the foundation. So I launched Ironbound Media, my podcast production company. We were profitable right out the gate. I got excited, right? You know, it's like standing at the lake, fishing every day. You don't catch nothing, right? That's what it's like launching a venture. But then after a while, you get better and better. And then you start to catch fish, and you start to catch a lot of fish. So now you're getting excited, right? And what I did was I got so excited that instead of focusing on saying, hey, how do I get this predictable monthly revenue? How do I dial in my sales and marketing? I want to jump straight into foundation and start to bring on other team members so we can scale up. And what ended up happening was I was growing so much, or I felt that growth so much, stuff started breaking, because honestly, being an entrepreneur is like the Wizard of Oz. You know, when they get to Oz and they find out it's just one guy pulling a bunch of strings, right? That's really what entrepreneurship feels like. And at times when you're going through a growth phase, it can feel overwhelming. You can feel stressed out. And so I decided to bring on some process consultants to help me build out my back-end infrastructure. take my foot off the gas on driving revenue. That way I didn't feel so overwhelmed, right? What I found out later was that I found that out before learning this framework, and I skipped and went into foundation. So I turned my sales and marketing off, was trying to build out our foundation. And what I did was I slowed our growth down. Okay. It wasn't the right thing to do. And really what I was doing was just adding more work to myself. So learning this framework, what I realized was, hey, I need to go back from foundation. Instead of trying to bring on new team members, let's really dial in this sales and marketing component. I launched the podcast, right? I started to get a lot more margin. I shot some videos, and then I used that margin to bring on more team members. So I kept the foot on the gas, I kept pushing, and I brought on other team members, okay? So I really want to stress this. Everything I'm talking about today is really going to help you not only validate your business model, but really hone that stage 2, which is drive that sales and marketing, all right? So now, at the end of this, I want everyone to be able to repeat back to me the 5 stages of small business growth. So take a screenshot of this framework now if you need to, but I'm going to ask you about it at the end. All right, so there you are. You're in the Dog Tag Fellowship. You come up with this great business idea. You're all excited. And then you say, okay, I'm ready to launch. But one of the things that people always ask is, how do I build brand awareness? How do I get myself out there? All right. And what I want y'all to think about is social media or launching a business or anything today. We are bombarded all day, every day with people trying to sell us, right? They're trying to sell us. They're trying to market the goods and services. You can't log on Facebook, Instagram, or anything else these days without stuff just popping up all the time, okay? So when it comes to building awareness, right, I want you to start thinking about identifying and targeting your perfect customer. This is someone that knows you, is willing to pay you a premium for your products or services, tell everyone how amazing you are, and in one of the most undervalued aspects of all, they make us actually enjoy being an entrepreneur. They fill us up instead of drain us, right? Because there are going to be a lot of clients and customers out there that you're going to chase that are going to drain you. You know, they're the ones that constantly email you all day. They're never satisfied. They make you hate life. We don't want those people. We want our perfect customers. All right. So when you think about the marketplace out there, how do you stand out from the crowd? This is where your dog whistle comes in. I want you to identify your perfect customer and only communicate with them. That is how you're going to build brand awareness. We're going to build brand awareness by doing business with our perfect customer, and letting that speak to our value as business owners. All right. So when you think of a marketing funnel, okay, everybody tries to do the marketing funnel like this. And it's like build awareness, then you nurture leads, and then you eventually turn them into paying customers. The challenge when you first launch a new venture is nobody knows who you are, right? So how are you going to build awareness? And then the majority of us here are bootstrapped entrepreneurs. We're not going to raise venture capital. We're going to, rob Peter to pay Paul. We're going to use our full-time income to launch our ventures. So we need to be profitable sooner rather than later. We don't have time to chase people that have no idea of the value we bring, let alone aren't in need of it. So what I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to flip your traditional sales funnel upside down from like this to like this. And what do I mean? We're targeting individuals that already have the problem our company is uniquely positioned to solve. They're actively spending money to solve it and are also looking for better opportunities. So let's say you come up with an idea to launch a fitness studio, right, in your local town. What you want to target are people that are actively already pursuing physical fitness. They're the ones that are spending money, right? They got the protein shaker, they're vegan, they prioritize health and wellness, right? So we're going to spend our time going after those individuals. We don't have time to try to convince people that aren't spending money on fitness, that don't see the value in it, because we're going to be swimming upstream. In the early days of launching a venture, you don't want to swim upstream. You want to get some base hits, right? So you want to target people that are actively spending money. And the nice thing about targeting people that are actively spending money, it lets you know that there's a market out there for what you're offering. The top 2 reasons businesses fail are number 1, no market need, and number 2, you run out of cash. So by identifying your perfect customer, in a market that they're already spending money, we're going to bypass that and prevent that from happening. All right. So again, your perfect customer, someone that knows you, is willing to pay you a premium for your product or service, tell everyone how amazing you are, so they're giving you a constant stream of warm referrals. And lastly, they make you enjoy being an entrepreneur. So my perfect customer at Ironbound Media is a 30 to 40-year-old service academy graduate that is running a professional service company, generating upwards of $1 million a year in revenue, that needs help with their marketing and branding and wants to launch a podcast. Okay. That is my perfect customer. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. Number one, the reason I say $1 million plus a year in revenue is because we charge premium for our podcast production services. So part of identifying your perfect customer is making sure that they can afford to pay you at your price points. So we sell packages anywhere between $10,000 to $25,000. I know that someone generating $1 million plus a year can afford our services. All right. So number one. The other thing too is think about where you have a tactical advantage. So the reason I like to say Service Academy grads is because that's my network. That's my tribe. That's where I come from. A lot of times people do business with those they know, like, and trust. Well, who already knows, likes, and trusts you, or better yet, has a reason to do so? It's going to come from our affiliations at universities and the military, etc. You know, old school marketing was all about that cold calling, reaching out to people, trying to sell people that have no relationship with you. That is a bad idea for business. You can do that later on, but when you're first starting out, you want to tap your network, right? You want to speak to people that already know you, let them know what you're working on, and use that to drive value. All right. Next, once you identify your perfect customer, the next thing I want you to think about is how are you going to communicate with them? And this is where your whistle comes into play. Now, a whistle can be anything from a podcast to a newsletter to your personal social media account. I just want you to think of this as your main communication channel for delivering value and communicating with your perfect customer. The important thing to think about a whistle is if your perfect customer doesn't listen to podcasts, probably a bad whistle for them. Okay. Same thing. If they're not on Instagram and that's where you're posting and where you're trying to drive all your traffic to, and they're not on there, that's bad for business as well. So again, you want to identify that perfect customer and then reverse engineer. Hey, what channels are the best for communicating with them? Is it email? Do they prefer getting called over the phone? Do they go to in-person events, right? These are all things you want to think about, and you want to put yourself in the best position to engage and interact with them. Which brings us to our next section, which is your engagement area. I like to use military terms, y'all. I know everybody wasn't in the Marines or the Army. Some of y'all were in the Air Force, or like we say in the Marines, the chair force. Just joking, of course. But your engagement area is your battlefield, right? This is where you're going to think about, hey, where am I going to go engage with my perfect customer? And at Ironbound Media, we like to teach the rule of 3. Okay. So one perfect customer, one target market, and one distribution channel. That's it. So you're not going to post on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You're going to pick one where you believe your perfect customer is going to be, and you're going to pour into it, and you're going to lean into it, and you're going to make that your main engagement channel. Once you do that, the next step is I want you to do your SWOT analysis, right? So in the military, we call this observations of fields of fire. But this is where you're looking and seeing, okay, how is my perfect customer engaging on these platforms? All right. What is the kind of content they're liking, that they're sharing, right? What motivates them? What are they interested in learning about, right? And this is where you are going to apply those lessons to the content that you're creating, to your whistle. So for example, let's say you're starting a bakery or something, and your perfect customer really enjoys recipes. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to post recipes on your social media channel, or you're going to post recipes in your newsletter, because maybe they prefer the newsletter better than social media. So each week you send a new recipe of some kind of baked good that either you're making or that you've come across. And that's how you're going to deliver value to them. You're going to start to engage with them, and then you're going to interact with them. The key is, what do they care about? What's important to them? And then adjust accordingly. All right. So once you choose your engagement area, Once you do your SWOT analysis or your observations of field to fire, the next thing that I want you to think about is you need to come up with your plan, your marketing plan. And we're going to do this by coming up with a target list. All right. So I want you to do a list starting out your 10 dream customers. All right. So again, if it was me, my dream customers would be a list of 10 Service Academy grads running growth stage professional service firms generating $1 million plus a year in revenue. And you're going to create a Google Doc. You're going to use Notion. You're going to use something, any kind of platform that you can think of, and you're going to populate that list with your ideal perfect customers. All right. Once you get 10 of those, then I want you to go ahead and get 10 more and get 20. Right. And we're going to work our way all the way up to 100. And this is going to be your dream 100 list. So your dream 100 is your perfect customer times 100. And what I want you to do, though, is I want you to have a list of them. And again, triple down, double down, lean into the competitive advantages, the tactical advantages that you have, i.e. your network, right? Maybe you went to college somewhere. You have an alumni network. Maybe they're part of the Chamber of Commerce, right? A lot of times when people are trying to develop their marketing list, we love to put these clients that we have no relationship with. So like right here at Ironbound Media, I could say, oh, my dream 100 list is Amazon or something. I would love to have Amazon as a client. But do I realistically have, or do I know anyone at Amazon in the audio space that would hire me to do a podcast for them? Maybe, but honestly, not so much, right? Versus me saying, hey, I know, Billy Fedorko, who runs Admiral Distribution down in Texas, right? Professional services firm, right? I already have a relationship with them because we're in the same coaching group. That's probably better. That's probably more realistic in terms of who I can reach out and touch. So that's what I want you to think about, right? I want you to have your audacious customers that you would love to be able to go after. But at the same time, I want you to think about people you realistically think that, hey, if you reached out to them and said, we'd love to jump on a call, they will respond to your email. At the very least, you could get their email and their contact info. That's how you're going to build your list. Once you have that list, the next thing we're going to do is you're going to start launching your marketing plan, which again is really just about creating educational content to deliver value to your perfect customer. All right. Now, one thing that I like to say is everything is a hypothesis. When you're launching a business, right, it's just a test, right? We have these assumptions, but at the end of the day, the market is going to tell us what's working and what's not working, which is why I like to say business is a contact sport. In boxing, right, I can hit the heavy bag all I want in the gym. I can hit the mitts and look like Mayweather. But if I want to compete at the highest level, I need to spar. And when you get in the ring and start sparring and start getting hit, punched in the face, you realize real quick, you need to keep your hands up and what you need to work on. And you need to get sharper. Sparring makes you sharper. In business, selling and trying to engage with your perfect customer makes you sharper. So this isn't just theory. This isn't just like, oh, I'm going to come up with a plan and then I'm going to hide behind my computer. No, it's like, hey, you're going to come up with a plan and you're going to get out there and you're going to try to sell clients. You're going to try to sell your products or service relentlessly. And that feedback you're going to get is going to let you know what's working and what's not working. All right. The reason I use bracketing, because in the Marines, right, we fire artillery and we start to bracket, right? So we'll have our point. We fire a piece of artillery. We're over it. Then we bracket. We adjust. We bracket. We adjust until we start to close in and get closer and closer to our target. All right. So let's say you come up with your idea for your perfect customer. You assume that they're on Instagram. And so you start posting on Instagram and start creating content. But after about 3 months or so, you realize, hey, this isn't really working. I'm looking. We're not really driving revenue. Maybe this was a bad choice. That's okay. This is one of those moments where you make a decision. You say, hey, am I going to lean into it for another 3 months? And then we'll have a better understanding of whether this is a good platform to reach our perfect customer, or are we going to pivot to another one? But this is where the strategy comes into play. And what I will tell y'all is don't be so quick to jump from marketing plan to marketing plan. Come up with something, lean into it, and push forward. So at Ironbound Media, we launched our podcast, Dog Whistle Branding, I want to say in November, right? We didn't start earning revenue from it probably until late January, early February, because this is when clients who are on our podcast started to reach out to us and say, hey, we would love to work with you and engage with your services. All right. So give it some time, invest in it. But again, you're going to adjust. Jim Collins likes to say, fire bullets than cannonballs. So you have this idea, you think your perfect customer, oh, he's going to be at the Chamber of Commerce. Boom. So you spending time at the Chamber of Commerce. Think they're going to be on LinkedIn. You're spending time on LinkedIn. You think they're going to be here. Then you start to adjust. When you find out what actually is working, boom, fire for effect. All right. So again, we know the podcast works really well for us. So now we're doubling down and we're tripling down and we're really leaning into it. When you first start launching, once you start getting hits, so you start posting on social media or your platform of choice and your perfect customer starts reaching out, buying products, buying services, double, triple, quadruple down on that. You want to fire for effect and really lean into it. Now, how do you bring this all together, right? This is a simplified framework that we have, and it's the dog whistle branding framework. Number one, you identify that perfect customer. Again, someone that knows you, is willing to pay a premium for your product or service, and tell everyone how amazing you are. And again, they make us enjoy being an entrepreneur. I keep stressing this over and over and over, but if you only knew how many people spend so much time, effort, and resources trying to attract clients that are not their perfect customer. Everything that you do when you're building your business needs to be built around your perfect customer. Once you know them, then you start to build that whistle. And again, that whistle is your preferred communication channel, social media, in-person events, podcast, video, whatever. Pick one whistle and use it to communicate with them. And then number three is that premium branding. Okay. So one of the things that we teach people to do is identify your core purpose. Why do you exist? Okay. What drives you and what drives your team? The important thing about thinking about a core purpose with relation to your brand is a lot of times, sometimes as entrepreneurs, your core purpose is selfish. It's, I want to build generational wealth, right? I want to, earn $1 million plus in revenue for the year. That's great. But does that really motivate your team members to get out of bed at the 11th hour and send that email? They're not really interested in building generational wealth for you, but they might be interested in, building a more sustainable country or giving brands the voice that they can be proud of or building champions in and out of the ring like we do here at Ironbound. So you need a core purpose. Okay. Then what you need is your core values. And in the military, we have honor, courage, and commitment, which is great for like a big bureaucratic organization. But when you think about your own company, right, what are the behaviors that you hope to establish within your company? What are the norms? At Ironbound Media, one of our core values is don't be afraid to start ugly. Discipline equals freedom, right? Really get creative. But these are the traits and behaviors. One of my clients' core values is white glove customer service. You can imagine what that means in your head, right? What does white glove customer service look like? It means that, hey, are we taking care of our clients? If our client sends an email at the 11th hour, is somebody responding, first thing in the morning? Are we living up to these core values? This is what I want you to think of. And then lastly, your bold beliefs. This is where you climb to the top of a mountain, you plant your brand flag into the ground, and you shout from the mountaintop who you are, what you stand for, and what you believe in. This is where dog whistle branding comes full circle because you're not for everybody. And that's okay. Okay. Like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A doesn't serve beef. They serve chicken. So if you walk into a Chick-fil-A joint and say, hey, do you sell cheeseburgers? They say, no, we don't sell cheeseburgers here. Right. That's okay because that's not what they're about. At Ironbound Media, we service veteran-owned businesses. It's not to say we don't service non-veteran-owned businesses, but our branding is a little aggressive. You saw the Full Metal Jacket cover, Eat What You Kill. You got the dog whistles in the back of the Kevlar, right? That might rub people the wrong way. That's okay. They're not our perfect customer. So as you built your brand, going back to that first slide, right? It's noisy out there, right? Be for somebody and let them know who you're for. Don't try to be vanilla and try to be like everyone else, because if you do, you will never stand out from the crowd as a small business owner or early stage startup, right? You need to let your perfect customer know you exist, what you care about, what's important to you, and how you're going to bring value to their lives. All right, now what I want to do is I want to stop sharing because I know I went through a lot already and we got some questions going in the chat. So if there's any questions based off of what I've gone over so far, go ahead and raise your hand and let's ask them to the group. Dr. Joaquina, you got any questions?
Hi, yeah, I wrote down rule of three, but I didn't catch that in my notes, what you were referencing under the engagement area, I believe.
Yeah, so rule of three is one perfect customer, one target market, one distribution channel. So a lot of times when we're starting out, right, people make all these different avatars. We make these elaborate marketing plans. But one of the things that you all, I'm sure, are finding is that you only have so much time in the day. Okay. People have kids, they got wives and husbands, etc. And so you can't do everything. Right. So what I want you to do is I want you to focus, and focusing is where the rules of three comes in. One perfect customer, one target market, one main distribution channel. Okay. So for example, let's say my perfect customer is, again, that 30 or 40-year-old service academy grad. The target market I'm going after are professional service firms. The distribution channel I'm using to reach them are either my podcast or, let's say, LinkedIn. Okay. And that's how you start to build out your marketing plan, and you start driving it over and over again. What about you, Maurice? Got any questions?
Thank you.
No real questions. Well, I guess I got one. So I'm looking to start a podcast actually this week with a good friend of mine, nephew. He's my nephew, but he's a comedian. So we're going to do a podcast. So just starting out, is there any words of wisdom or advice you would give someone when they're just going out and just like really starting for the first time?
Same thing I said with this presentation, right? Identify your perfect customer is going to be your perfect listener, right? So podcasting is marketing on steroids, right? So you identify that perfect listener, and then you reverse engineer how are you going to reach them. So, starting a podcast is like talking into a void, right? No one's listening, no one's paying attention for you, etc. So then you need to think about, okay, how are you going to share this content with them? How are you going to make them aware of it? One of the things I didn't talk about in this presentation is embedded entrepreneurship. And what I mean is spending time in the spaces that your perfect customer operates. So again, it can be private Slack channels. It could be the Chamber of Commerce. It can be all these different places. For you, Maurice, when you think about your listeners, right? Let's say they're veterans, right? Are you part of veteran organizations, et cetera, right? So really trying to immerse yourself in these spaces so you understand what they care about, what's important to them, and it's easier for you to share your content with them so that they can get on and listen.
Thanks.
Janae, what about you?
I was just making some notes just to make sure that my question is the SWOT analysis, observations in field of fire, and the firing plan, those all go under the engagement area. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, your engagement area is where you are in, where you think you're going to be spending the time. This is where you're going to be able to speak with and engage with your perfect customer. So let's say an engagement area is the local Chamber of Commerce. Okay. What businesses are there? You start making that target list of who you feel like you can run into, because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get the conversations going with people. Most people make the mistake of selling. This is the problem with selling. Selling is very selfish, right? It's all about me, 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 me. We all know those people, right? They send out a message to you on LinkedIn or Instagram or tag you. It's just, right? Versus we're all busy. We all have issues. I got challenges in my business. We all have challenges in our personal life. I want you to flip the script on selling to helping, right? Who can you help? And the only way you know who you can help is by spending time to get to know them. Hence, embedded entrepreneurship, learning what they value, learning their industries, right? And then you get specific about targeting them. And so as you start to try to sell people, you're not selling them at all. You're just trying to help them. So let's say, prime example, Maurice just talked about podcasting. Hey, Maurice, my name is Iron Mike, man. I heard you're interested in starting a podcast. Just so you know, I just wrote this really great blog post about the 5 steps you need to think about when you're first starting out. I'd be happy to share it with you. Or, hey, Maurice, it was great hearing about your podcast. We'd love to chat sometime. Shoot me a message or whatever, and let's find some time to connect. You see what you do there, right? You're not forcing yourself on someone. You're just talking and you're helping. You're adding value. Now, I do service-based businesses. Many of you guys are going to start product-based businesses or CPG companies, okay? So let's say you have a hot sauce, right? I know Charlinda Scales. Charlinda has this really dope hot sauce called mud sauce, all right? So that might look a little different. You know, Charlinda might look up people that are really into like hot sauce or into cooking or whatever and say, hey, you know, I heard you guys talking about cooking. You know, I just made this hot sauce for mud sauce. It's really good on tacos. If you'd love to try it sometime, you know, let me know. And I'd be happy to send you a box or send you a link to our website, etc. You want to be conversational because, again, people are busy. It's stressful, right? And you want to think about where and how you can add value. Miss Tina, what about Vince Lauren's got a question?
Hey, can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. First, I gotta say, Charlinda's Air Force, so I just want to put that out there, bro.
She is Air Force. You're right. You're right.
You know, we got to give you the crayons when you need it. But listen, I also have a podcast, The Leadership Void, which I'd love you to be on it, and I would love you to speak because it might help more recent others. Like we just got our sponsorship. So how do you feel about getting sponsors on the podcast itself?
Sponsors are great. I mean, as long as they align with your values. So this is what I was just going back before. When it comes to branding, okay, so everything I talked about is we're actually building up your brand based off of your customer, your perfect customer. So a lot of times people try to force a brand onto the market instead of reverse engineering and making a brand for a perfect customer that says, you are for me, take my money. All right. Part of the next level of this, which we're not going to go over today in the Mini Learning Lab, is really leaning into that brand. So I talked about those core values, those bold beliefs. You want to find partners whose values align with yours, so it doesn't throw off your listeners. Okay, so if you're for sustainability, but one of your podcast sponsors is, I don't know, a waste disposal company or something that's not into sustainability, there can be a conflict there. So sponsors are great as long as they align with your values and, really convey how you want to show up to the world. Does that make sense? Now, outside of podcasting, whether you do a podcast, a newsletter, etc., the main thing that you're trying to do with these platforms is demonstrate your value to the world. You want to position yourself as an authority. That's what you want to focus on. You want to say, what can I do to make myself an authority around this particular niche and this space so that we can create demand instead of force it. So when you create demand, let's say you write about leadership, the leadership gap, and you've got 30 podcasts, you've written 10 articles, etc. You are an authority in that space now. And that's what you want to go for, right? But you don't have to have a podcast to do it. You can use your social media to establish authority. You can use that newsletter and those blog posts to establish authority. That's really what you're going for. Miss Tina, how about you?
So I don't have any questions, but I do have a compliment. And I wanted to tell you that I like your idea on one of the much earlier slides where you suggest to turn the funnel upside down, and instead of making it business, make it personal. I just wanted to tell you, I think that is a wonderful idea. When I was in Army recruiting, even though I was just a GS, I was a public affairs specialist. I watched these recruiters try to get 100 people in the funnel, so 3 would, become enlistees, and nothing about our approach back then in Army recruiting really got to know the individual. It was just about numbers. It wasn't about conversation. It was none of that. And so I'm glad to see that someone's smart and flipping that on its end, because I think people want to be made to feel special. And if you can relate to them in a conversational way, they realize, okay, maybe you do get me. Maybe I do want to patron your company after all. So I just wanted to give you a compliment on that.
I appreciate it. And the reason that's important, Tina, is because as small business owners, like, we don't have the churn and burn. That's the startup world. When you call customer service and people aren't answering and whatever, you're like, for freak it, I'm paying $10 a month, whatever. I'll cancel my subscription and go somewhere else. Well, as small business owners, that's not what we're going for. If you open up a bakery, somebody comes, eats that cookie, they're like, dang, this is the best cookie I've ever had. You want them coming back over and over. You don't want them to come, have a poor experience there, right? And then we just let them leave and don't care about it. And now they leave us a bad review. You don't have venture capital money to pump into this thing, right? It's going to be really off the relationships. And that's brand too. How do people speak about you when you're not in the room? So that's what we're going for. That's why those relationships are so key, because you want to make people feel special and you want to make them feel heard. Anybody else on the call got any more questions? All right, what I'm going to share. Go ahead.
I had a question about, you were talking about like presence and which media platforms are important, I guess, in establishing conversations and relationships. My question was, how do you know really which ones to start with, or which ones would you suggest someone starting with and then moving from there? Is it based off of the audience or based off of what you have available?
Perfect customer. It's your perfect customer. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm targeting a 60-year-old business executive that does manufacturing of some sort, right? What are your chances that he's on TikTok right now? Probably not very high, right? TikTok is like a younger crowd, you know, making videos and all this other stuff, right? So it probably doesn't make sense for me to spend the majority of my marketing efforts around TikTok. The same thing is for high ticket sales too. So again, if you're selling, let's say you're a coffee company, okay? And what you want to do is you want to do really big wholesale accounts. You're talking like $100,000 to $300,000 wholesale accounts, right? Where you're servicing an entire company, like their offices all across the Northeast or whatever. That kind of person, right, is probably not on TikTok, okay? That is an email, that is a relationship, right? That's probably a couple touch points that you're going to build with them and then be able to close that sale. So also think about, right, where, like, how much are people spending money? How much your perfect customer is spending money? Because a lot of what you're seeing on social media are these like consumer-based brands. They're customer to customer, B2C, business to consumer. But when you're dealing with B2B, again, those high ticket sales, right? Think about where they're spending their time at. So that goes back to bracketing. You're just going to test. That's really what it's going to come down to. So you're going to use your best to make your best judgment of where your perfect customer is. Then you're going to test and validate. And then once you validate, you double and triple down.
Thank you.
Now, one of the things I want to share with y'all, this is, I saved this for bonus, right? This is another secret weapon I have for you. This is called a Trojan Horse, okay? Everybody knows a Trojan Horse, right? Trojan Horse went into Troy, right? They came in the gate and then they jumped out and basically killed everybody and took over the city, okay? When you're first starting out your business, nobody knows who you are. You don't have any proof of value yet outside of your existing relationships. And what I want to challenge you to think about is, can you find a Trojan horse, someone that is going to get you in the door? You might take a little less margin because you'll be working under a Trojan horse. But what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to build credibility, and it's going to allow you to get some reps. For example, when I started my first company, it was Ironbound Boxing's for-profit arm, basically teaching boxing to companies in the New York City metro area, like WeWork, Spotify, Next Jump, etc. My Trojan horse was another wellness company that didn't have a boxing instructor. So the wellness company called Exuberancy had the accounts, and then they would pay me to come in and teach the boxing classes. Now, obviously, I took less margin because Exuberancy was the one booking the accounts. But what did it give me? It gave me exposure. It got me in these corporate settings, and it allowed me to test and validate the business model. Now, my first couple boxing classes, I was charging like $100 a session, because that's how much I was making working under Exuberancy. But those $100 a sessions allowed me to make the $350 sessions later, and eventually the $1,000 a session later, because I had those big name accounts, Spotify, you know, WeWork, all these different things that I could show and say, hey, we worked here, capturing content there, etc. So as you're starting to think about going to market, rather than trying to do everything yourself, see if you can find a Trojan horse to go under. You know, maybe, again, I like using a bakery example. You sell cookies. Maybe you know someone that sells cakes and they're having a pop-up event or something. Maybe they'll let you come and work under them for a little bit, selling your cookies, you know, under their brand, just to get started, because you don't know what you don't know. And a Trojan horse is an easy way to get out there and start learning and start getting that market-based feedback. So this is just a little trick that you can leverage to get out there and start to build with. Somebody's got a hand up. Katie, you have a hand up. You're on mute, Katie.
So sorry you couldn't hear me. This is so motivating. Thank you for all your time and expertise. So speaking of Trojan horses, I've got, like my list of dream businesses that I could be partnering with. And as things start to line up for me, I still have this this discomfort with reaching out for fear of maybe stepping on toes within my industry, or as you'd mentioned before, sounding like I'm asking for too much almost of somebody's time or energies. So do you have recommendations around how to gently reach out, humbly reach out, and see if, some sort of partnership alignment is appropriate?
So going back to what I just said, right? It's about helping people. Okay. When you reach out, who are you positioned to help? All right. So again, an example I gave, right? The company didn't have a boxing instructor, or they had a very weak boxing instructor. So by me partnering with them, right, I'm adding value to them because now they're able to offer something that they didn't have before. I'm able to cover a gap on it. So when you think about, this is where that SWOT analysis comes in, the channel partners you're reaching out, who does it make sense that you can help, right? And again, going back to before, cold reach outs are bad. You're going to waste time. You're going to swim upstream. A good reach out is who already has reason to know, like, and trust you. So in the case of Dog Tag Bakery, they've got an amazing alumni program now, right? So chances are, if you offer this service and you can help another alumni, it's not a bad to reach out to them and just kind of let them know what you're doing and say, hey, if we can offer value, we love to be able to do so. Chances are that alumni already knows what you're going through in the program, probably likes helping other dog tag fellows, right? So that's an easier sell versus going out and reaching some random business on the other side of the country. Hey, we get those annoying emails. Hey, Katie, this is Mike. I see that you do B2B sales. I think that's not what you want. You want to build relationships with people. So look at that list, narrow it down to 10, right? Get one and then lean into that vertical. See if you can get others in that same vertical.
Awesome. That's beautiful advice. Thank you.
Any more questions?
When you say lean into that one and get that vertical and have, what do you mean by that?
All right. So remember what I said about the rule of 3, 1 target market, 1 distribution channel. So let's say, and this goes back to Bracken. There's a lot of overlap here. All right. When I started Ironbound Media, I thought my target market was accelerators and incubators because I'm very entrepreneurial. I like entrepreneur education. I thought people would get tired of being on Zoom. So my value prop was, let's create educational content that you all can listen to, while you're, hooking and jabbing, right? You're moving around. You don't have to sit on a Zoom class to catch this content. Once I started going out and engaging with accelerators and incubators, I found out they had little to no budget for podcasting, right? So it's a bad target market. But I was on a call like this and my business coach said, Mike, who's your perfect customer? And I was like, 30, 40-year-old service academy grad, run a growth stage, better known business, generate $1 million plus a year in revenue. One of the persons on the call, just like this, unclicked off of mute and said, that's me. When can we talk? We had a call on Wednesday. By Friday, he purchased our platinum package. And I had just made up the platinum package. Okay. So right off the bat, boom. So I said, maybe there's something here. So I start leaning into veterans, right? Very similar to me. And once I found that out, that's when I launched the Dog Whistle Branding podcast. That's when I doubled down and tripled down. So that's what I mean. So you can start a business and you can say, we're going to service car washes. We're going to service auto dealers. We're going to service all these different places. But if you start getting pings with the auto dealers, like they're buying your coffee or something, freaking call every auto dealer in the state, right? That's what I'm talking about. Because as business owners, we get overwhelmed. There's like, oh my God, there's so much we can do. You want to get everything down to a list. That's your goal. When you can get stuff down to a list and you can start focusing on hitting that list and crossing things off, right? That lets you know you're getting on the right track. But if you're so random and scatterbrained that it's hard to come up with a list of people, then you're probably not narrow enough. You haven't niched down. So that's what that's what I want you to go towards.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Safi, is it Safidin?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time and your expertise and some of the insight depth that I gather from you. It directs me to what I'm seeking. I have niche in the government after a year and a half of research, found out that there's a lot of spending going toward education based on post-COVID. And I was researching food concept, fast food concept. And at the end, found out that there's a lot of to deliver based on a motivation speaker and to deliver to the post-COVID impact of self-disconnectivity that was created in humans. And the government is channeling a lot of money into it. And so now I'm like the niche. I am physically trying to get to some of those pitching contests in the area that I'm able to sit and see what's going on and to mingle with them. Not to do anything, just to mingle. I don't even have a business card yet. But how would I get to sell the government my educational material to sit and deliver? I have delivered my own approaches so far into my own local community because everybody says you got to launch it now through your local community. Otherwise, you're not going to stand on your feet as a starter in this business with the post-COVID. How would you suggest I can approach those individuals in these government say yes and nays to contracts to continue that approach that you referred to by being with the incubators?
Going back to what I said before, it's your perfect customer. I wouldn't even think about the government. I would think about the chief procurement officer for whatever, right? Whoever the person is that cuts the check that says, hey, we're going to go with this vendor for this service. That's the people you want to get to know. And you want to find out, again, where are they at? What's their job title? You need the title specifically, what organizations that they're a part of. And you need to think about how can you start to build a relationship with these individuals without selling them up front. You know, so this might just be, oh, there's a meeting of the chief procurement officers of whatever, you know, at this space in 2 weeks or something. Maybe you go. I don't know. Right. But again, or you connect with them on LinkedIn. You start engaging with their content or whatever. Right. But that's what you want to do is you want to find the individual that cuts the check. And this is for everyone. That perfect customer needs to be the economic buyer, not the head of HR, not this person. It's the person that can cut the check and say, hey, here's the money for your products or services. That's what we're going for.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. You just answered it and you nailed it.
So as we wrap up here, what I want to do is I want to share with you all a link to one of the podcasts I host for Bunker Labs called The Transition. And each week I interview veteran entrepreneurs and military spouses from all over the country, all over the world to demystify the entrepreneurial experience for you all. We take off our armor. So this ain't, you know, Gary V, look at me, I'm so successful. These are real entrepreneurs struggling with real issues, and we share lessons learned. In addition to The Transition, I also have the podcast Dog Whistle Branding, which I shared to you at the beginning. If you listen to Dog Whistle Branding, I guarantee you'll be able to get your first 10 customers and then go from 10 to your next 100. That podcast is literally a go-to-market playbook on marketing, branding, and category design for veteran-owned businesses. So feel free to check out and engage with my content. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram for the most part, and I'm here to support in any way I can.
Mike, thanks so much. It sounds like it was a fantastic session with really good questions, which is always a good sign that people are engaged and that it's going well. So just really appreciate you. Want to hold space. We have 2 minutes left. Just if you have any questions about the Dog Tag Fellowship Program, Happy to stay on and answer any of those. We are so excited. Just as a reminder, we're accepting applications through March 15th. So we've got about 2 more weeks left to apply. And just encourage you to get that in. For the eligibility form really takes 5 minutes, super easy. And then once you submit that, we'll just verify your eligibility and then send you the official application. So definitely take some time in the next week or so to get those in. I did put in the chat the link to our newsletter so that you can subscribe to that, so that you can stay updated on recruitment information and events related to that.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.